from Reason.tv right now. Very pleased to have with us on the program Kennedy. Kennedy, how you doing tonight?
What's happening, Kim? How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Believe me.
Yeah?
Pinch me.
Hey, listen, I got to tell you, I'm delighted you're actually covering D.C.'s gun laws. They're such a travesty, and I know that this is something that it does interest you. You got to spend some time with Emily Miller of the Washington Times not too long ago, right?
Yeah, she's amazing, and she has been writing such an informative series about the gun laws there, and from a very practical standpoint, because she was the victim of a home invasion and just wanted to protect herself. And, she brought up so many great points in her articles, which is, women who live alone, can you think of a better group of people that should be arming themselves? And the answer is no. And in a city like Washington, D.C., where, it's just ripe with corruption, but they have no idea how to actually honor the Constitution, particularly that inconvenient Second Amendment. What it took for her to obtain a firearm was just, you can't imagine the minutia and the hoops that she had to jump through.
I mean, it really is eye-opening, and I know you live out in California, right?
Yeah.
So, it's a pain in the neck in California. You guys have some really restrictive laws. I live in Virginia now, and I moved to Virginia from Oklahoma, so I've always lived in states with, relatively good gun laws. And so to learn about, what happened and what you have to go through, even after the Supreme Court has ruled that D.C.'s gun ban was unconstitutional, that its storage laws were unconstitutional, and Emily has been amazing at actually getting the city council to try to change some of these laws. I mean, they mandated, Kennedy, that you have range time before you could own a firearm in your home, and yet there's no range in Washington, D.C. for you to go to.
And, the thing that kind of blew me away, one of the things that Emily pointed out was you also had to take classes. And they gave you a list. They gave you a phone book full of people who could inform you on how to use your weapon. And she went through, and it was mostly men. And, she had no idea. And she said going into it, she knew that all these guys were armed. And she had no idea, what their backgrounds were. And she just knew that she was going into some creepy guy's house with guns.
Right.
And then she herself didn't have one.
Right. And as a matter of fact, I guess the list was outdated. There were, people who were on who weren't doing this anymore. Look, Washington, D.C. makes it as difficult as possible for you to exercise a fundamental constitutional right.
A fundamental constitutional right. And that's the thing that blows me away, because I think there's so many people who, if they had their way, they believe that they are so smart, they would do away with the first two amendments.
Oh, I think there's no doubt about that. I have a feeling that some of the nanny staters out there think that we're getting a little too uppity for our own good. Look at the public reaction to Bloomberg's proposed soda ban. I don't think he was anticipating to be mocked from coast to coast when he introduced this idea. Do you?
Oh, mercy. And the fact that he is saying without any scientific evidence that they're going to ban soda, and it's like, show me the direct link between soda pop, sugary drinks, and obesity. I know there are fat people. I totally understand that. But and also the other thing for these, ultra leftist irrational do-gooders is, sure, you can't buy anything over 16 ounces. Well, what's to keep me from buying two 16-ounce drinks? And then I'm clogging the landfills and increasing my carbon footprint.
But you're also doubling their tax revenue, so they're okay with that.
Oh, yes. I mean, that goes, the raised taxes go hand in hand with the coercion. It's just an eroding personal freedoms, one moral choice at a time. And I was having an argument the other day with someone just about this exact thing. And they said, well, I go to Disneyland and I see fat people. And I said, okay, I look around and I see a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there has to be a law to prevent that. Because, every study, every example will show you that government is not the efficient force for dealing with problems.
Well, absolutely. And this is one of the things that I know, maybe it's a libertarian tenet, I don't know, but government is not always the solution. Why do we assume that the answer to everything is always a piece of legislation? Whatever happened to you making your decisions, or me making my decisions, or a school board, for goodness sakes, or a city council somewhere? Why does it always have to be the federal government? Why can't it be us, our families, our neighbors? Why do we always have to have something mandated to us?
It has to be an outside body, and that's twofold. One, it's people are giving up that personal responsibility, which is the most dangerous thing you can do in a democracy. That's number one. And number two, you have a group of people who are so elitist that they really feel they know better than everybody else. And it's this just blatant distrust of human nature. The human beings are so dumb or they're so evil, they cannot be left to their own devices.
Yes, and look, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I refer to it as authoritarianism, but you can call it whatever you want. That negative attitude towards the rest of humanity, that only the chosen few, are smart enough to guide the rest of us, simple little sheep. Look, that's a recipe for totalitarianism. It's a recipe for despotism.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what it is. That people are either too dumb or they're too evil. And and it takes a very grim view of human nature, and that's something that ultra leftists cannot fathom. Is that conservatives and libertarians have always held human beings to a higher standard. That the individual left to his or her own devices will always make a better choice for him or herself. And when people do break laws, when people do infringe on other people's rights, there are mechanisms for that, and it doesn't mean you have to pass more laws. We just did a video with Reason TV about the plastic bag ban in L.A., and I said to one of the city council members, what you really need to do, if you want to do something efficient with this body, is put a moratorium on passing new laws. And I agree with that for just about every political body there is in the country. Like, stop passing new laws. And on the LA City Council, they get paid $180,000 a year to do what? I mean, they really feel that it is their God-given right to just infringe on more. I mean, there was a $1,000 fine in place in LA County beaches.
If you dug a hole, right?
Yes, holes and beach balls. For throwing a beach ball or a football on the beach, you get fined $1,000 in California.
That is just, that's amazing. It's amazing to me that this is what they're spending their time on. And, Kennedy, the other thing, you hit on something with the plastic bag ban, because, I think one of the big things is it makes people feel good to do these things. Mayor Bloomberg said, we're doing something. We don't just wring our hands here in New York. And in D.C., you've got the city council members say, well, we have to do something. To go after violent crime. I don't know why they wouldn't go after violent criminals, but
exactly. No, don't go after the violent criminals. Give them more money.
Exactly. But we have to do something, and it feels good to ban plastic bags because we're going to save the environment. But look, every one of these proposals comes with a cost. You can recycle these plastic bags, and
100%.
you're going to have a much less of an environmental impact than let's say growing the cotton to produce a organic cotton bag that's reusable.
Filthy reusable bag
Exactly.
That's loaded with germs and E. coli and salmonella and everything else. And you know what's going to happen? And Bernard Parks is a city council member in L.A. who, he gets it wrong a lot of the time, but for one reason or another, he was the only person on the city council who got it right, is someone's going to sue. Someone's child is going to get sick. They're going to contract E. coli because they were forced to use reusable bags. And, they didn't know that you're supposed to wash them all the time. And, by the way, the reusable bags made in China, not recyclable, use tons of dirty gas to cart them into this country.
Right.
Whereas, plastic bags made from American-made natural gas and 100% recyclable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the other aspect of this is not only do they want to tell you how to live your life, they're wrong a lot of the time. They've got really bad ideas.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. The idea that we have to do something is so dangerous, and they all feel the same way.
It's the fierce urgency of now, Kennedy.
Yes. If we're too big to fail, everything's too big to fail.
So, do you see any hope out there? I mean, you must if you're doing these reports for Reason, and trying to educate people. You must be somewhat optimistic about the future.
I am optimistic because I know ultimately people will get so ground down, they will get so sick of it. They'll send messages like they did in Wisconsin. And I hope they get the same idea in places like California. San Jose and San Diego both just passed local pension reform.
Yep.
They have to do that on the statewide level in every single state. And it's not that we don't want firefighters and teachers taken care of, but they should be making the same individual choices that we all do. Every other person has a 401k and, usually their own health insurance. And it's something that's not going to break these municipalities where the budget surpluses are just they're so massive that we're going to turn into Greece. Like we're literally headed for austerity and old people rioting.
That's a scary scenario you paint in California, but. As you said, there was a couple of municipal elections that sought to deal with this. You guys had the experience in Bell, California, which was just, a horrific example of greed within the bureaucracy. So, I'd like to think that Californians are aware of the problems that are out there that are real and need to be fixed.
I would like to think so too, and it's it's a state where being a libertarian is very confusing to most people. They don't understand what you're saying when you say I'm a libertarian, and then when you quiz them, it turns out I would say 85% of people out there are libertarian. They just don't realize it. And, it's like, take Carmageddon, for example. The 405, which is this massive freeway, was shut down for a weekend, and they had such a huge public campaign, and people are just ground down to the nub, and everyone stayed off the 405. And they were like, oh, this is such success. And it's like, no, it's actually sad. People are so used to the government telling them exactly what to do that no one stands up for a second and says, oh, maybe this is impractical.
Well, keep spreading the word. And listen, next time you're in the D.C. area, let me know. We'll take you out to the NRA range.
Oh, I would absolutely love it. That'd be great.
All right, fantastic. Kennedy, thank you so much for coming on the program tonight. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Cam. You too.